in this retreat, again, I've been calling it Descending with the View from Above, we're not really doing the aspect of Padmasambhava's teachings which touches on the conduct and the foundation that creates a solid platform for receiving the advanced teachings. But he has an encyclopedia of teachings, and if you start from the beginning, there is conduct that's discussed and taught. There's pointing out instructions for behavior on the spiritual path. And normally, if someone was doing really just a teachings retreat on Guru Rinpoche, they would touch on this conduct and behavior because it is a big part of the path. And learning how to cultivate bodhicitta by behaving in a certain way, selfless service, kindness, generosity, the ability to move out of ourselves and feel what's happening for other people so we can serve other people. But in this retreat, we're not really going into that level. The idea of these teachings, and Padmasambhava actually speaks this and says it at the end of these pointing out instructions that we're going to do this morning. He talks about how these teachings need to be hidden away. They can't be disseminated during his lifetime. And I think probably 1,000 or more years passed before the teachings were found, and they were brought to, at first, just monastic environments and high lamas, and given from person to person. And then Dilgo Khyentse, in I think 1973, he went to a monastery and found in the monastery a lot of the oral instructions. And he had them translated and published. And that was the first time they came out into the public. And the timing, this was all prophesized also, that the timing would be right for it to come now. And 1973 was really not that long ago. If you think about Buddhism has been around for thousands of years, and the older traditions have been kind of seeped in our planetary culture since the beginning of time. So Buddhism's quite new, and these teachings are quite new. The reason he called them secret teachings was really not because they were supposed to be kept secret, but what he said was when they're brought out into the public, when people hear them, if you're not on the path, if you don't have that foundation and that somewhat of a devotional or longing for the truth, for awakening, you're not going to hear the teaching. It's not going to mean anything. It's just going to sound like a bunch of words. But if you're ready for the teaching, then you're going to receive it, and you're going to be able to experience the transmission and have that cut-through experience of the thinking mind and the samsaric effect of living in our world has created for us over the years. Padmasambhava himself is called the lotus-born guru because he didn't come in with an egoic structure he had to overcome. He came in quite in what we would call a nirmanakaya form, which is like a purified form of our own human self. And he was born out of a lotus flower. And his life was devoted to teaching, pointing out instructions, and liberating people as he met with them. So there's story after story of him meeting different people, and he would point his finger at their heart and speak, and they would be liberated. And to this day, a lot of us in Buddhism and other lineages as well talk about pointing out instructions, and that came from his pointing his finger at a person's heart while he was giving an instruction. And his consort and closest disciple was Yeshe Sogyal. He had many close disciples, but she came onto the planet, another enlightened Nirmanakaya being, for the purpose of recording his teachings. He didn't record his own teachings. So all of these things that happen, most of these teachings, and this teaching we're going to do this morning, is her playing the role of asking a question that's needed to be asked, and him responding to the question with the plan of this is all going to be recorded and given to monastics and the greater population at a later time. So it isn't a question-answer format, and she had the ability to verbatim remember everything he said and recorded it exactly as he said it. And she's very profound. Almost, she is thought of in the deity form as well, but she was a natural person that lived on our planet as a human. The Master, Padmasambhava, whose realization is equal to the truly and completely awakened Buddha, who possessed in his mind all the teachings on the view and meditation, and never strayed from the true meaning. He was asked by Lady Soigal of Karshan about all the key points to resolve the realization of descending with the view from above. Lady Soigal asked the Lotus Master Padmakara, from where do all that appears and exists the phenomena of samsara and nirvana first arise? And Padma replied, all that appears and exists, the phenomena of samsara and nirvana, arise from the solidified habitual tendencies of labeling. There are 3 types of labeling: mental labels, cognitive labels, and verbalized labels. Mental labels make thoughts move. Cognitive labels build up habitual tendencies. And verbalized labels manifest the manifold objects. It would therefore be better if you stop labeling. And Lady Soigal asked, how does one become free from attaching labels? Padmakara replied, when you are free from the thought activity of mental labeling, you will be free from the cognitive labels, good and evil. And when free from that, you will also be free from attaching the names of verbalized labeling. By being free from the multitude of dream habits, you are free from labeling names. By being free from that, you will be free from the label Bardo. And free from that, you will be freed from the label birth and death. By being free from these, you will have stopped the stream of samsaric rebirths. All phenomena are names labeled by thoughts. These names are not real, so it would be better to be free from labeling. Lady Soigal asked, "What is the way to be free from labeling?" Padma replied, "The phenomena of samsara and nirvana, when labeled and conceptualized, appear as enjoyable or offensive, pleasant or painful, and they all naturally dissolve when you either alter their names nor attach any labels, but leave them in their natural state." Lady Soigal asked the Master, "What is the meeting point beyond both Buddhas and sentient beings?" Padmakara replied, "When there are neither Buddhas nor sentient beings, this is the natural state. It is beyond knowing and unknowing, beyond realization and lack of realization, beyond real and unreal, good and evil, and thus free from all types of labeling." Yeshe Soigal asked, "How are sentient beings then deluded into this labeling?" Padma replied, "The ego arises from that in which there is nothing to label. As this habitual tendency to ego belief solidifies, names are formed, such as father, mother, child, possessions, enemy, friend, objects of the senses, and so forth. In this way, ego belief and labeling delude you into the 6 realms. And Lady Soigal asked, "How does one then attain enlightenment?" And Padma replied, "You are not enlightened through fabricated dharmas. You need a dharma beyond fabrication. You are not enlightened through indicated dharmas, truths. You need a dharma, a truth, beyond indication. You are not enlightened through explained dharmas and truth. You need a dharma, truth, beyond explanation. You are not enlightened through cultivated dharmas. You need a dharma beyond cultivation." Don't do anything. Don't go anywhere. Don't think. Don't construct. Don't judge. Don't focus. Don't support. Don't take aim. Don't cling. Without anything whatsoever, simply remain. Don't even label this Buddha. Dharmakaya, ground consciousness, truth, is beyond thought, word, and description. Lady Soigal asked the Master Padmakara, "Isn't this the nature of non-action?" And Padma replied, "While in itself it is no thing whatsoever, its experience is that any perception takes place, while it is no concrete thing whatsoever. This serves as the basis for all myriad things. It serves as the expression for all indications. Dharmakaya, ground consciousness, holds no attachment or clinging, yet is the foundation for everything. It is free from all birth, all death, and yet serves as the basis for sickness, aging, and death. Don't fabricate it. Don't modify it. Remain free from mental constructs as primordial openness, your original state. Let samsara and nirvana dissolve just where they are. Let your innermost enemy, ego belief, naturally subside. This, the portent of dread, has thus changed into auspiciousness. Lady Soigal asked the Master, "Is mind the basis for faults?" Padmakara replied, "Lack of realization is the basis for all faults. Realize the nature of mind to be empty in essence. Within this vast and empty Dharmakaya, oneness consciousness, no defilement of faults can live. Thus, the Buddhas awakened by realizing the nature of mind. Firmly resolve that faults have no inherent basis. Lady Soigal asked, "Are objects and mind a duality?" Padma replied, the objects, the appearances seen, are mind's display. The many displays are the play of your own mind. And while they were all empty in essence, the objects will dissolve and do not need to be rejected. Firmly resolve that objects and mind are not two. Yeshe Soil asked, should Buddhahood be achieved as some other place? Padma replied, all the Buddhas dwelling in all the times realized their minds to be beyond arising, from a state of non-arising. The plays appear as kayas, heaven states, and cannot be achieved apart from that. Firmly resolve on that. Yeshe Soigal asked, what is the confidence free from dread of change and transmigration? Padma replied, change and transmigration are labels created by worldly people. When you have perfected the power of self-knowing and always remain in the unchanging state of great equality, you can firmly resolve that there is fundamentally no change and no transmigration. Yeshe Soigal asked, where do we find an abode that is fearless in the face of death? And Padma replied, when you realize that the nature of your mind never arises, you may seem to change bodies, but you do not move from this empty and lucid ground consciousness, Dharmakaya. It is the nature of your mind. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigal asked, what is the falling into the different classes and states of human beings in samsara? And Padma replied, that which appears as the manifold sufferings of all the classes of being in samsara is not created by anyone else but you. It happens because you fail to recognize your own nature. It is your own mind that harms itself. You can and should firmly resolve that the great emptiness of your own mind is free from the root of suffering. Lady Soigal asked, can this nature of mine be tainted by karma and habitual tendencies? The Master replied, "Karma and habitual tendencies, as well as everything virtuous, good thoughts, meditating, and meditation objects, are mind. Evil thoughts and that which creates non-virtue are also mind. But since this mind never arises, is empty, insubstantial, and wide open, you can firmly resolve that it is beyond being tainted by any karma, virtuous or unvirtuous." Yeshe Soigal asked, "Is there any abyss into which one might fall?" Padmakara replied, "The root of falling is a thought that is your own. The place of falling is an abyss that is you. The fear of falling is your mind's suspicious thought. Samsara is your mind's deluded form. So when you see your mind as Dharmakaya's vastness, the worlds of all the classes of beings become Buddha fields. You can firmly resolve on that. Yeshe Soigal asked, "Can this view of the Buddha fields fall into duality or partiality?" Padma replied, "This view is free from deviations and impartial like the sky. Everything is mind, and mind itself is empty and free from partiality and duality, just like the sky." You can firmly resolve on that. Yeshe Soigal asked, "Can that which we cultivate in meditation be obscured?" Padmakara replied, "Let be changeless dharmata within the empty essence of your mind. Wakefulness is ceaseless and non-dual and lucid, like the sphere that is the sun. You can firmly resolve that Dharmakaya, Dharmata, true meditation, is beyond being obscured. And Yeshe Soigel asked, is there anything in the conduct to adopt or avoid? And Padma replied, the conduct free from anything to adopt and to avoid is like a flawless crystal placed upon a silken cushion of 5 hues and colors. All that you do is the empty, lucid mind itself, which is not made of faults or qualities. All that you see is self-occurring and self-dissolving. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, does fruition of the path exist to be accomplished from somewhere else? Padmakara replied, present in yourself, enlightenment cannot be achieved. As with the precious wishing gem, all wishes and desires are fulfilled by you yourself. Likewise, Buddhahood, with all its supreme virtues, arises from realizing your own mind. Your mind, since the very beginning, is self-present Dharmakaya. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, should we regard outer appearances as imperfect? And the Master replied, do not find faults in outer things. They are personal display. They have substance. Yet, just like reflections in a mirror, they are seen, but are not really there. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, should we regard our thoughts as imperfect? The Master replied, don't see thoughts as being faulty. Like the waves upon the ocean, any thought that may arise within the quiet emptiness that is your mind is but Dharmata's display. And you can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, can or should we depend on conditioning? Conditioned roots of virtue? The Master replied, fabricated dharmas, teachings and truths, are all conceptual mind. All conditioned dharmas perish. Dharmakaya, ground consciousness, however, is self-present timelessly. Be free from effort in conditioned material virtues. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, can original wakefulness manifest or vanish? The Master replied, the wakeful knowing appearing in yourself is itself lucid since the beginning. Its identity is natural brightness, free from the outside or the inside. This wakefulness is vast, self-present, naturally knowing. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, can cause and result be divided into two? And the Master replied, every being has the essence of enlightenment. Timeless Buddhas, no division into cause or in result. No new thing is there to ever find or be accomplished. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, should love and hate be rejected? The Master replied, the poisons are not to be rejected, nor is wakefulness a thing to be achieved. An enemy is not a mark for hatred, nor should you bind yourself to friends with personal love. Your empty mind is the doer of all. So you can firmly resolve that poisonous emotions are self-dissolving. Lady Soigel asked, are samsara and nirvana respectfully evil and good? The Master replied, conditioned is the nature of samsara. Conditioned means unreal and transient. The nature of this transience is emptiness. A timeless, empty vastness beyond evil, beyond good. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, How are the three kayas, the Buddha lands, celestial states, present within oneself? The Master replied, the empty nature of mind is Dharmakaya in its potentiality. Its cogniscence is Sambhogakaya, and its unconfined quality is Nirmanakaya. Free of the emotional poisons, you can firmly resolve that the three kayas are primordially present within you. Lady Soigel asked, can the nature of Dharmakaya, ground consciousness, be applied in practice? The Master replied, when realizing mind, its empty nature, you see that Buddhahood is not a place which you must reach, nor is it gained by taking refuge or practice. It is no product, no object, no teaching or truth that you can make through effort or achievement. You can firmly resolve on that. Yeshe Soigel asked the Master, can we possibly fall into samsara? From the kayas. The Master replied, in the empty nature of your mind, you cannot find a basis for samsara. Samsara's root, a timeless purity, is undiluted wakefulness, which cannot fall. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked the Master, is there a doer of Dharma practice? The Master replied, in the essence of self-knowing, a primordial emptiness, neither owner nor a Dharma practice can be found. The doer of all virtuous action is primordially emptiness. And so there is no doer of your Dharma practice. You can firmly resolve on that. Lady Soigel asked, should we rely on personal instructions? And the Master replied, Buddha mind is surely your own nature, present timelessly within you. No need it is there to seek. Your simple knowing is the Dharmakaya. It cannot be shown to you by someone else. You can firmly resolve that it needs no instruction. Lady Soigal asked the Master, do realized practitioners still have to take rebirth? And the Master replied, in the sky-like nature of the mind, no impelling force of karma can be found. So the womb doors of the sixfold beings in samsara are left vacant. Depleted are the gatherings of tendencies and karma. Samsara's realms are overturned right from their depths. The single sphere that is the nature of your mind is devoid of change and transmigration. They do not exist. Birth and death are interrupted from their very root. The sight of Alaya's, Dharmakaya's rootless nature evaporates the streams of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Inevitably, it purifies all karmic ripening. Without rejecting it, samsara has dissolved into itself. Without achieving it, Buddhahood, nirvana, is accomplished. Intermingled, samsara and nirvana are not two in Dharmakaya. Therefore, there is no basis for another karmic rebirth. Thus Padmakara spoke. And then he said, Lady Soigal, this instruction is the path traversed by the Buddhas of all the times, since they all awakened within this nature. It is the path through which the beings of all the realms are liberated, since they are freed within this nature. It is the realization of me, Padma. So Soigal, keep it in your heart.